Hello, I'm Ciarán Lynch and welcome to OviCast, the Chocolate Sheep podcast. Each episode will bring you latest insights, advice and technical updates for the sheep industry. This week's episode we're joined by sheep specialist Michael Gottstein to discuss important aspects of lamb drafting at this point in the season. We discuss the expected kill-out percentage in lambs and what can influence it. We move on to discuss the issues of underfleshed carcasses, both in terms of delivering returns to the producer and the type of carcass they produce. Michael discusses the key areas to focus on for lamb finishing and how to troubleshoot some of the problems. We finish up on Michael emphasising the importance of not only drafting at the correct weight, but also ensuring there's adequate cover when drafting lambs. We start off, however, with Michael discussing the national kill and the type of carcass being supplied at the moment.
So look at, Bord Bia are kind of tracking this, and Seamus McMiniman from Bord Bia has been telling us there, Ciarán, that, we're back in terms of the number of lambs being killed. The other thing I suppose that's showing up there is that lambs are just short of a kilo lighter than where they were around the same time last year. And as well as that, quite a number of lambs killing, twos or low kind of fat score twos. So, I think that's basically farmers reacting to, probably concentrate prices, feeding less meal, maybe a little bit to do with kind of grass shortages in the kind of eastern part of the country as a result of the drought. And I suppose we're kind of hearing a lot of anecdotal evidence here that people are unhappy with maybe some of the kill-outs of their lambs, that lambs are killing out light enough, or poor, people feel that lambs are killing out poorer than they should.
Like that drop in carcass weight, that's not just a blip pull for either ladder, it's a general trend we've seen right across the country. Likely is a little bit of a performance setback on some farms.
Yeah, sure. Look at, what I suppose what we're seeing is a natural progression that as lambs get older, kill out falls. I suppose this year people are feeding probably more grass-based diets than heretofore. The meal is very, very dear, and maybe some people are kind of accustomed to getting, somewhat higher kill outs and better carcass weights, in previous years, but maybe they were feeding a bit of meal as well in previous years, and maybe had better or more grass in particular, maybe if we look at kind of some of the areas that were short of grass because of the drought.
Look, maybe that's a good point we'll just pick up on. Killouts, look, as lambs get older, killouts drop. Just maybe set the scene for us. Where are we at killouts at the moment? What kind of progression of drop-off have we seen from weaning, we'll say?
Yeah, so look at, I suppose, really well-fleshed lambs, probably even lambs that are getting a bit of meal at weaning, at the point of weaning, we're probably kind of seeing, somewhere between 48 and 50%. Generally with grass-fed lambs, we're probably about 2%, 1.5% or 2%, below those kind of figures. So then look at, as the year progresses, we start dropping off from that particular figure. And what we're seeing on a lot of farms now is kind of lambs coming in around kind of, 42, 41, 43%. Again, look at it, depends on whether the farmers are feeding meal, how well fleshed the lambs are. Like, the poorer the flesh on the lambs, the lower the kill out is going to be. So lambs that have the weight, but aren't handling, so don't have a good flesh cover, will generally kill very, very disappointingly. So it's important, I suppose, that farmers not only weigh their lambs, but also that they handle them and make sure that they have adequate flesh cover, across the line and the ribs. Otherwise, we're going to end up with lambs, not only having a poor kill out, but also having a carcass that is less desirable for the consumer, because there'll be very little cover on it. So,
when we're trying to maximise carcass weight, maximise returns, the difference in having the flesh on the lamb versus that, just for a kill out point of view, that's worth 2, 3, 4% in some cases.
Absolutely. So, a lamb that handles badly, your 42 percent kill out lamb that handles badly very, very quickly becomes a 38 or 39% kill out lamb. Obviously it depends. So whether it's a ram lamb, might even be more exacerbated. If it's a ewe lamb, it might be a little bit less. So I suppose the main message really, Ciarán, here is that people need to weigh and handle. That weighing alone, is not going to do the trick for them. And then I suppose look at the other side of it is, if we have a lot of lambs that are short in flesh, maybe just to consider why are they short of flesh? You know, what's causing that, like, you know?
Another point just to pick up with, John. In terms of the finished product, you mentioned there that the feedback from Bob B is we're seeing a lot of lambs short of flesh when they kill. That has an impact, Michael, on how long they can chill that lamb for and the presentation of that lamb in packet. So it's an ongoing impact on the consumers as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, and it's important, I suppose, that, you know, while often we would see that once the lamb is sold, it's somebody else's problem. But I mean, if the consumers stop buying or reduce their preference for lamb because of poor presentation, then it becomes a problem for us as farmers as well, because, you know, there's less demand for the product. So everybody has a role to play in terms of you know, supplying something that the market wants, and what we want is a reasonably fleshed lamb. And look, at from the farmer's point of view, selling a lamb, you know, with reasonable flesh is important, because that's ultimately what is getting paid on, is carcass weight. So
just like to expand that bit a bit more, like, it is your one chance. You sell, that's it. That's your return you're going to get. For those underfleshed lambs, I'm not killing into 18, 19, 20 kilos. We're like most will aim for 20 plus kilos at this stage. You're not maximising your return. Is the option maybe, Michael, when grass supplies are not getting tight on farms or priorities are changing, are some of them lambs maybe more suitable to offload to stores? If you are in a situation where grass is getting tight, then maybe you need sales coming in.
Yeah, so look at, I mean, Ciarán, that's a very important point. I think people need to have a look and see where they're at stocking rate wise. Okay, what grass is on the farm, what grass they think they're going to accumulate between here and the back end. So if you know, for a farm that's very tight on grass and has an awful lot of lambs, you know, that are a long way off finishing, then maybe store lamb route is the way to go. On lowly stocked farms where there's you know, been a good build up of grass and there's sufficient grass there, and we're not worried about having grass to flush ewes and bring ewes into the winter, you know, and there is a range of lambs there, everything from kind of smaller lambs to medium lambs to lambs that are quite close to finishing. It's about maybe having a look and see, what do we do? Do we take the heavier bunch and feed them on? Do we leave the medium bunch there, or do we sell them as stores and bring on the lighter bunch on the grass that's available? So every farmer really has to kind of do a sum on so what the resources are there. It probably makes sense from now on for people to start looking at finishing groups. So those are your kind of lambs that are closest to finish, and feeding them a little bit of meal, you know, 300 to 500 grams a day, to move them on. Obviously, if grass is short, in shorter supply, then maybe feed a little bit more, or offload them, some of them as store lambs.
Look, some farms seen a bit of a blip this year with the drought. You know, it's not something they would have planned for. It hit probably at an awkward time to finish lambs. Other farms, though, Michael, have this issue coming to August, September, October every year. Struggle to finish lambs, struggle to get flesh on. What are the couple of things they need to look at? There's reasons behind it, so yep. Where are the key areas to focus on?
Yep, so look at, I suppose, the key areas in terms of lamb finishing are around things like, you know, health and nutrition. So those are probably what we can bunch the two things into. So if we take the health one first, like very often we talk about stomach worms. So maybe the lambs will have been wormed, but is the wormer working? So we're seeing that a lot of wormers aren't working anymore on farms, or have reduced efficacy. So really important is to take a dung sample, you know, and see did the wormer clean out the lambs. Okay, so that's something that all farmers can do, and it's not very difficult. The second area then, I suppose, around health is things like lameness. Okay, you know, is there a large percentage of the lambs lame? Lame lamb is not just a lamb that is kneeling or can't walk. It's any lamb that has, you know, even the slightest little hobble. So, you know, are we dealing with lame lambs? Are we pulling them out, separating them, treating them? You know, and have we a system in place to footbat the other lambs to prevent them from getting scalds and then subsequently foot rot and lame? The whole area about minerals, we get a lot of conversations around minerals. I would put the mineral maybe into the nutrition rather than the health category. For most farms, you know, the only thing that's probably going to be limiting is cobalt, cheap and cheerful to apply as an oral dose, and see do you get a response. The real one, I suppose, then that we need to look at from a nutrition point of view is the offering that's there in terms of grass. You know, the quality of the grass and the quantity of the grass and the way that grass is managed. Like, so have the lambs nice, leafy grass, but that they're not being forced to graze it down to the butt. or are the lambs in lots and lots of grass, but it's really stemmy, really ropey stuff that is very poor quality? Or are the lambs going into really leafy grass, but being forced to graze it down, to the absolute butt? And we'd be losing performance in, both those cases if lambs are grazing leafy grass but having to graze it very, very low, or if lambs are inside in really strong grass, lots of grass there, but it's of poor quality. So really what we're looking for with our lambs is ideally to let them graze the best quality grass on the farm, run the ewes or the cattle behind them to clean it out so that they're not forced to graze it down. If minerals are an issue, supplement and see do you get a response. If you're not getting a response, there's no point in giving the minerals. Generally, the one we would see on sheep farms in an Irish context is cobalt, so dosing them every 2 to 3 weeks with cobalt sulfate would be an option. And then look at the real one, I suppose, then is the whole area of parasites, so it's looking at stomach worms and keeping on top of lameness. And if we get those right, then we'll maximise our performance off grass. And if we need to come in then with a little bit of meal to the finishing group to put a bit of extra flesh on them, that's fine.
And maybe, Michael, then just a very final point, handle the lambs when you draft them to avoid that disappointment.
Absolutely. It's not just about weighing them. Weight alone isn't telling you the full story. We need to weigh them. They need to be the correct weight. So a lot of people now are in the kind of 47 to 50 kilo bracket, and then they need to also handle. So a lamb that's 47 kilos but is not handling is going to kill very, very disappointingly.
Michael, great having you on. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks, Ciarán.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for this episode. Again, very timely information from Michael and some very useful points highlighted. There is more information about lamb drafting and some of the issues around parasites on the Teagasc website on the sheep section. That's it for me for this episode. Again, for updates from our sheep programme, keep an eye on our Twitter page at Teagasc Sheep. I'm Ciarán Lynch. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe and get notified of any new episodes.